Hi everyone. In today's session, we're going to be exploring the Revit to Forma interoperability add-in to see how we can enhance the look of our Forma proposals. This allows you to add families and geometry that are not normally available in Forma. Today, we'll cover how to install the add-in, load a proposal into Revit, make some edits, then export those back into Forma. So moving into Forma now, if you look at my front page actually there, we've got two little examples here. So we'll run through that, of how that's been created there. So inside of Forma, I've got a saved camera position here, which is here. So we'll use that as our demonstration. Now, to open so Forma has the send to Revit function already installed in it. It's a web-based platform, so it gets updated automatically. But to open a Forma model in Revit, you need to download an add-in. Now, to find the download link, that is conveniently located inside the Proposals tab here. So if you click on the three dots next to this proposal here and click on Revit, the add-in can actually be found where the Send to Revit function is. So if you download that and then install it into Revit, when you open Revit, rather than in the add-ins button, you'll actually find this in the massing and site tab. So it'll come up and it'll look like this. So that's sort of the easiest way to get the Forma add-in. Okay, so looking back in Forma, so when sending a Forma proposal to Revit, it's a one-way process. So that is when you send a Forma proposal like into Revit, it's not possible to make changes to the proposal here and then send it back to Revit. Now we can, once we pop this into Revit, we can keep making changes in Revit, and it'll add to this particular proposal. But until we unlink the proposal from Revit, we can't make changes in this particular Forma proposal, and then sort of continue to have our Revit interoperability. So when having understood that, when we're loading our proposals into Revit, it's a really good idea just to click on the three dots here and duplicate your proposal, so you don't make any sort of irreversible changes. So I've already duplicated a proposal here. We'll call it Demo 2. Now, another thing to understand when we're about to send our proposal to Revit is to remember that the Forma model is actually georeferenced to this particular location. So when we load the proposal into Revit, the Forma geolocation will actually override any location data in the Revit file. So it'll create a new project base point in Revit, and that project, all of the coordinates will actually match the georeference system of the Forma project. Now this uses the Universal Transverse Mercator Coordinate System, or UTM, and at the present there's no way to change this. And also at the time of recording, there are currently no options for specifying an internal origin point in Revit. The internal origin of the Forma project will default roughly to the center of the site. So that means that when we load this proposal into Forma, it's actually going to sit directly on that internal origin. You'll be familiar with this as the little blue box inside of the bimco template. So this is a little bit of a limitation at the moment, as it might not match up to your preferred positioning. But what we'll just see in a minute is that we're not really going to keep our Revit model in many circumstances. We're just going to use Revit in order to make some updates and then go back into Forma. Now, once we do load this into Revit, you can move this around to a different position in Revit. So say if you just want to use the site geography or something like that. But once you do that, you can't update it back into Forma and have it land in the same place. So in order to load the proposal into Revit, we click on the three dots here. I'm going to go to my handy dandy view actually. Yeah. Click on the three dots here, go down to the Revit tab and click Send to Revit. And once that has been sent, it'll give us a dialog here. And when we go into Revit, in order to load the proposal into Revit, we first need to set the options of what we want to load in. So we'll run through those quickly in order to look at the options that we have available to us. We can click the drop-down menu in the Load Proposal tab here. And click Options. And we need to select how we would like the Forma proposal to be translated into Revit. Now, this will depend on what you really want to do with the Revit project. So we have the option to create walls, floors, and roofs for buildings. So those forms that are defined as buildings in your formal proposal will have the ability to kind of automatically generate walls and floors and buildings and various different things and that'll include this item, this object here, which is merge walls on adjacent levels, which will where you've got different levels in Forma that will but essentially just join the walls together. You can also automatically generate rooms for each space that's been created inside of Forma, parking spots for where you've placed those, creating mass families for building envelopes. So where we've got our three-dimensional site limits, that'll be transferred into Revit masses in that case, and conceptual masses for 3D elements. Creating generic models for all other elements. So that's things like our trees and things like that have been created in Forma. They'll be interpreted into generic models if we have that tab. And then another one to create separate levels for each building. So each level that's in Forma, if you have that box ticked, it will create a Revit level inside your project. Now, we need to be careful of that because if you already have a number of Revit levels set up inside your project, this will duplicate further ones. It won't be able to actually read the levels that are inside your project. So you may need to do some preparation on the Revit file that you're going to load the Forma proposal in order to make sure that it's manageable. Now, some other options that we have is to create some model lines for things like property boundaries and roads, if that helps. And then there's another funky one here, which we'll have a look at in a minute, where we can actually apply the satellite imagery that we've imported from Forma and apply it to the terrain material. So we'll see in a sec, that's kind of a fun way, I think, of using satellite imagery applied to the terrain rather than a Google Map image that's used as a background. We'll go with these options for the moment. In order to load the proposal, we just click the tab down here and click on Load Proposal. So that's read the proposal that we've sent to Revit. It's giving us a little preview. Okay, and our Forma proposal is now inside of our Revit. Now, as I was mentioning before, we click on to our realistic mode, we'll see we've got the terrain, sorry, the satellite applied to the terrain there, which I think is kind of a fun feature. It might be, you might be able to use this just to generate a topography inside of Forma, apply the terrain feature, and then maybe you can just start sketching directly in Revit based on that. So let's go ahead and start using some Revit editing techniques in order to pretty up this project a little bit. So one of the classic ones that I like to do is to delete the trees. They do tend to look a little bit like rubbish bins or paddle pops or something. So these will come in as generic model groups, although we can't really edit them to any great degree. And we can't actually swap them out with Revit components at present. So say we wanted to clean up this, it's probably best just to delete these all together. And then we'll go into a site plan along here. Now our view that we've set up in Forma is coming from this angle along here. So I'm going to grab some trees and place them along this site along here. So let's go into our site component, and then I'll grab a tree. And we'll pop in some trees here. Okay. We can also put in some other entourage elements. Maybe we'll grab a person. Um, no, there we go, people. Put a woman in on the phone. Now, it's important to realize that Forma won't deal with sort of complex three-dimensional shapes very well. So it's better to use sort of more cutout kinds of things. I mean, it is a very basic conceptual mock-up tool. So that's reflected in the kind of geometry elements that you can add here. So I've just got a person there, I've got another person, and then we'll probably need to raise these people above, because I'm aware that ground level here is about 950 above. Okay, so let's have a look at what that looks like in 3D now. So we can see here, we've got a couple of people there. Might just go back into the hidden line view here so we can see that a bit better. Now, another thing we can do other than just sort of adding these little knickknacks here, I'm just going to get rid of these roads here. I don't particularly like those. Select all instances in the entire project. Now we can also use some of the system-built modeling functions to add things like special windows and things like that, because the building that we've imported from Forma now has true Revit walls. So I wouldn't go too hard on this sort of thing. It's really just about giving certain impressions. So say, for instance, we wanted to give this a look of a curtain wall inside of Forma. We could select one of these walls, then select all instances in entire project, and that's all the walls for this particular building we've got here. And then I'll click up on here and then add an external glazing system. Let's pop that one in. Okay, and we'll usually get a few typical errors, joining, and a few warnings here. Okay, it's looking pretty good. We might just give this a save. And now it's time to load back into Forma and see what our results are. So in order to do that, we go to the next tab along here, Update Proposal. So we click on that one, and this will update the proposal back to the Forma proposal that's linked to this particular Revit model. Now we also have an option here to apply certain visibility graphics from a view. So that so if it's things like, we may have hidden certain things in a particular view and we want to translate those to Forma, that's another option that you've got to select here. So we'll update those. Now you'll get a message like this. This isn't an error so much. It's just sort of telling you that there's a number of objects in here that will be translated into Forma as mesh objects, and that means that they'll be kind of dumb objects that can't be edited anymore in Forma. And generally, this will be things like trees and entourage elements. Okay, so we've successfully updated the model in Forma. Let's have a look at our results. Okay, so we're back on into our Forma proposal. Now you'll usually have to, you'll usually need to refresh the screen here. It'll probably take a little bit of time to come through. And there we go. We can get rid of our trees now. And now we've got maybe something a little more presentable. Now, once we've finished editing our Forma proposal in Revit, we want to go back and ensure that we unlink the proposal. And that will allow us to continue editing our model in Forma. In conclusion, I hope this gives you a taste of how the Forma Revit interoperability add-in is a handy way of leveraging the model tools in Revit to enhance the look of some of your Forma proposals.